Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about the different ways that we can represent decimals. As you can see, I've listed here the many ways that we can see decimals. Decimals are just part of a whole. They can also include wholes or whole numbers with a part as well, but we can show that in standard form, and I'm going to show you examples of each of these in just a moment. We can see them in the grids, which we've been practicing in class. We can see a place value chart, much like the one that you used in first grade and second grade with the hundreds, tens, and ones. We also can see decimals as fractions, because remember that decimals are just part of a whole, and that's exactly what fractions are. We can see expanded form, which you've had work with before with whole numbers. So here's standard form, and this is where I've just written out the decimal. So we have 173 thousandths. Next, we have the grids, and this is what we've practiced, so keeping the same number, 173 thousandths. Remember, in this grid, each individual little box here is 1,000th. And so in order to cover 173 of them, this would be 100 thousandths, because each box has 10. And so if we add 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and then if these are still tens, we have 7 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we have 3 of the individual little thousandths here. So this is 173 thousandths. Next, we're going to look at a place value chart, and like I said before, you've had a lot of work with this in the younger grades, especially focusing hundreds, tens, and ones. But now, as we move to the right of the decimal place, we have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. And so as each digit takes up a different place value, you can easily see what it would be. So we have 1/10, like we saw in the grid, 7 hundredths, and 3 thousandths. And we could say that by saying 173 thousandths, because we end on the thousandths. Next, we have the decimal as a fraction. And so we have 173 thousandths. So notice that my denominator is 1,000. And then my top number shows that I have 173 out of 1,000 pieces, just like we had in the grid. All right, next is expanded form. Now this one can look the trickiest, and we can see expanded form using fractions, because decimals can be shown with fractions. We can also just see it as the decimals themselves. So if we think about what a tenth would, so in this, let's see, in this one I'm still showing the same decimal, 173 thousandths. So I'm going to break apart each individual digit here. So remember, the 1 stands for tenths. So if I did 1 times 1/10, I still have 1/10. Next, I'm going to add my hundredths. I have 7 hundredths. So really that's like saying 7 times 1/100th. And so to write that, I don't need to write the multiplication sign. I can just write the 7 next to the parentheses, which lets me know that I need to multiply. So next I'm going to move over 1 decimal point to the thousandths. And so I have 3 thousandths, which would be the same as 3 times 1/1000th. Next, if I want to show you the decimals, it's the same concept, except I have broken them apart into decimal form. Once again, we're showing 173 thousandths. So I have 1 times 1/10. And so, like I said, I've just used the parentheses there to show that I'm multiplying. Then we're going to add 7 times 1/100th, and then I'm going to add on to that 3 times 1,000th. So it's just like we did in fractions, except it's shown in the decimal form. And so that is all the different ways that we can see all of the ways to represent decimals. So once again, we saw standard form, we saw the grids, the place value chart, fractions, and expanded form, both with decimals and fractions. All right, guys, I'll see you in class.